Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Natalie Rose. Do you get scared by ghosts? Do you find a thrill in scary things, but then you want to run and hide when you find them? What are these entities that spook us so much? Should we be scared and avoid them? Are you like me, able to perceive them whether you like it or not? How can we embrace this ability as a gift rather than as a curse? I've seen and felt ghostly apparitions ever since I was young. Some have been beautiful and wondrous, while others were incredibly dark and frightening. Over the years, I have learned a few things about these incredible entities. So, in the spirit of October, the spookiest month, I am going to share some of these experiences with you and some of the wisdom that I've gained about encountering and working with spirits. Disclaimer, I am about to talk about spooky stuff. If you are easily scared or offended by talk of the paranormal or supernatural, then please do not watch this video. The information presented here is based on my own research, studies, messages from spirits themselves, and field-tested personal experience. It may or may not align with your own ideas, and that's okay. I appreciate and welcome all perspectives in honor and respect. If you feel called to comment on this topic, please do. I would love to hear from you, even if we don't agree. Let me start with a little story time, because what would a ghost video be without a good ghost story? This is a true story as I remember it. When I was a teenager, I loved the cemetery in my town growing up. I would often walk through on a bad day because it felt peaceful. Sunlight through the trees, the flowers, the carefully tended graves and headstones. It filled my heart with love. Occasionally, I would stop to make a headstone rubbing. Some of the graves dated back to the 1800s. Now, my group of friends loved exploring the paranormal. One night, when we were all hanging out, I was talking about doing headstone rubbings at the cemetery. My boyfriend inquired whether I had taken a rubbing of a specific grave in the cemetery, which dated to the 1800s, and he described it to me. I told him that it did not sound familiar. He said supposedly it could only be found at midnight. So, of course, we got all excited to find this mystical headstone. We all loaded up in his car and drove to the cemetery around 11 o'clock at night. It was dark, but the moon was bright, so it wasn't pitch black. We had to enter from the back, not the main gate. So it looked unfamiliar and overgrown, not what I was used to. My boyfriend had been there before, so he was the one leading the way with his flashlight. Now, this was before cell phones, so we only had the one flashlight. There wasn't a trail in that part of the cemetery, and so the further back we went, the darker and more creepy it became. Dead branches stuck out in the moonlight and clawed at our clothes and faces as we crept by. We slipped deeper and deeper into the oldest part of the cemetery, the part that the forest was slowly reclaiming. Finally, we reached the point where the grave should have been. My boyfriend pointed to a dense, dark nest of overgrown vines and thorny bushes. No headstone. So we continued searching, circling around, in and out of bushes and dark old trees, jumping in fright at every sound in the woods because, of course, we were all working ourselves up about ghosts. I didn't say so, but I definitely could feel something watching us. And the longer we spent creeping through, the more oppressive the watchfulness became. And I was far more concerned about twisting my ankle on a gnarled root than I was about ghosts. But it did feel like we were making a bit of a spectacle of ourselves to the spirit world. Perhaps they felt that we were being disrespectful. I suggested that we leave and go do something else, but I was outvoted by my friends. We came back to that same spot that my boyfriend had pointed to before. He said he was sure this was the spot, and he shined the flashlight on nothing but thorns and briar. Then he moved the flashlight away. And just then, the moonlight reflected off of something in the dense dead thorns. Something whitish, shimmery. It was a headstone. It read, Charles Embry. I don't remember the exact dates, but it was dated in the 1800s. There were runes carved all along and beneath his name. As we drew closer, we could see that adorning the headstone was also a pentagram and an upside-down cross. To the right, there was another headstone, more delicate, with the name Catherine Embry. And to the left, a little tiny headstone without a name. We all stood in awe as this moonlight shone upon these headstones. I noticed that there were thorny vines, and they belonged to a long overgrown bush allowed to run wild over the years. We carefully removed some of the forest debris that had fallen over the headstones. At this point, I began to feel a presence, a strong male presence. It seemed to me to be a cloaked figure that I perceived without seeing. I sensed him come closer, and as we cleared debris and discussed what might have occurred for this poor family, my boyfriend suddenly reached out to touch Embry's headstone. He reached right through the dead thorns and vines as if they weren't even there. We all cried out, wondering what had gotten into him. He said he had to trace the runes. He ran his fingers over each rune, tracing each line. I watched, feeling that this was so wrong, wanting him to stop. The air suddenly became very cold. I sensed an anger, an overwhelming, dense anger. Just then, a cloud covered the moon and it became so dark, like almost pitch black. I was really frightened, and I said, we need to go. So my friends all agreed, except my boyfriend, who seemed fascinated by the runes. We managed to rouse him and quickly made our way out of the cemetery. However, my boyfriend trailed behind. He seemed as if he was in a trance. One of my friends took the flashlight and let us out. I grabbed my boyfriend's hand and pulled him along. As soon as we reached the fence and crossed the threshold out of the cemetery, the moon reappeared. Everything felt lighter, and we all began to laugh. A giddy, heart-racing laughter. A free, silly laughter in relief to no longer feel the oppressive, cold darkness and fear. My boyfriend even laughed and seemed to be himself again. However, as we drove home, still laughing and talking over our feelings and sensations and the shared experience, my boyfriend continually became quiet and subdued. I asked if he was okay, and he said that he was. But later that night, he admitted that he could still feel Embry with him. A couple weeks later, we were all gathered again. My boyfriend became very serious and quiet. We all paused our normal shenanigans to ask if he was okay. He said that Embry had been following him and that he had even chased him. He said he never should have traced those runes, that he needed to go back to the graves and trace the runes backwards and apologize. We didn't even hesitate. He was so serious and frightened, and we knew we needed to go that night. So, we made our way back to the graves of Charles, Catherine, and their baby. It seemed much easier to find them this time. The area seemed much less overgrown. It also seemed less dark. As we approached the stones, they were more dull and old. They didn't shimmer in the light like they had when we first encountered them. We watched in silence as my boyfriend traced the runes backward and said a silent prayer. I prayed too, an apology and a simple request for my boyfriend to be released. As he stepped away, the flashlight illuminated a single red rose growing over Embry's headstone from that bush that had overgrown. It was alive, and there was one red rose over the grave. We never returned. Although I still went back to the cemetery to meditate, I never saw those gravestones again. As far as I know, the ghost of Charles Embry is still watching over his wife and child in those woods. If you ever see his headstone, look, admire, show respect, but do not touch. Although this was not my first experience with spirits, it was a crucial point in my understanding of them. It changed how I approach the occult and the supernatural. Not with fear, not with recklessness, but with respect and caution and compassion. An important part of this story is that if someone confides in you that they are experiencing something otherworldly, especially if it is frightening for them, it is crucial to treat it as if it were true. To disregard or attempt to convince them otherwise is not going to help anyone. It can actually do harm. It doesn't matter whether you believe in it or not. What matters is that they are experiencing something that feels real to them and have trusted you enough to tell you about it. So, as their confidant, use your intuition and inner wisdom to look toward solutions. If they need to trace rooms or perform a cleansing spiritual, encourage them to do so. Please take a moment to comment and share your own personal ghost stories. I would love to hear your experiences. If you have nothing to share, please leave an emoji. Also, take a moment to like this video and subscribe if you haven't already. Your continued support helps to grow this channel, and I am so grateful. Now, back to ghosts. I'd like to help ease some fears about ghosts. They can seem very frightening. However, understanding more about them can help people feel safer. And fortunately, there are protections that you can use to ward off any harm that the lower order spirits can cause. First, I want to talk about the veil. The veil is a barrier, a permeable membrane, a layer of illusion that hides the spirit world from the corporeal realm. Some people are naturally able to peer through the veil and sense spirits, entities, and energy. If you are able to sense auras, you are peering through the veil. When you see a ghost or an apparition, you are peering through the veil. You can improve your ability to see beyond the veil through inner work and raising your spirit frequency. When people become awakened, they usually experience an amplification of psychic ability and perception. With this inner work, the fear just drains away. Therefore, it isn't scary to have more frequent paranormal experiences. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It feels like a relief. So, what are ghosts? Ghosts are energy resonance that is left behind when a human being dies. It is drawn to the corporeal realm at a specific location, object, or person. A ghost could be what we call a soul, or it may be a soul fragment that is severed. There are many different types of spirits, and I'm not going to go into detail today about all the different types. But I could make a video about that if you would like. Please leave a comment if that is something that you're interested in. What is important to know right now is that ghost energy is stuck energy. It's like being trapped. There are many reasons that this can happen, but they're all driven by desire and clinging to something or someone. It doesn't seem to be a very fulfilling experience. In fact, ghosts are often said to be hungry and yearning for something. They do not understand that they can let go and move on. The ones that scare you are afraid. Angry ones are attracted to anger. Lustful ones are attracted to lust. Some ghosts are just curious and playful and they just want to play. Spirits are drawn to the emotions that they resonate with most. Empaths are most often affected by lower order spirits. So, healthy spiritual cleansing is crucial if you are an empath. Sometimes ghosts know that something is wrong, but they cannot fix it on their own. If you are naturally able to peer through the veil, some of the most in need will be drawn to your energetic frequency like a magnet. These spirits are seeking help. They either have unfinished business or they need guidance on life lessons that they missed while they were alive. Often, these are the ones that are shy and they peer around corners. As a human being, you have free will, and therefore you can choose whether or not you want to help them. I personally have helped spirits move on. I work with the goddess Hecate, and sometimes she brings spirits to me that need help. Occasionally, I am unsure how to help, lacking in wisdom and resources that it requires for them. Or sometimes a spirit acts in a way that is deceitful or disrespectful. And in those cases, I explain firmly and lovingly that I am unable to help them, and I ask them to leave. They usually will move on at that point, but there's been a couple of times where they've lingered and they've acted in really unkind ways. They said hurtful or inappropriate things, or sometimes they have attempted to channel through me against my will. So at that point, I use Reiki to cleanse my energy field. And then I call upon my spirit guides to help remove them. It usually works immediately. In fact, it's worked immediately every time I've asked. Spirit guides are always ready and willing to help, but it is important that you request their help. They respect our free will and will only intervene if you ask them. Now, if you are letting something get to you, you have a shadow that isn't addressed, or you have a bad habit that appeals to a spirit, they can latch onto you. You might not even notice them, but they will amplify your desire to continue the bad habits and hide your shadows. Most unconscious people are riddled with these low order spirits. The more that they feed them through poor choices, the stronger and more entwined they become. I have even had them leap off of people and come and join me for a few hours or a day. There's usually something I can teach them. One time I taught a spirit about mindful eating. It asked to eat with me and it wanted to devour my lunch. I drew upon Thich Nhat Hanh's teachings of mindful chewing and savoring each flavor and texture one bite at a time. When I was finished, it wanted more. I explained that I was finished, and then I meditated on the satisfied sensation that I got in my stomach. Then I got goosebumps and a warm feeling when the spirit ascended, and then it was gone. Protection. Let's talk about protection. Your mental, spiritual, and physical health is your greatest protection against ghosts and low order spirits. They cannot latch onto you if you are whole in body, mind, and spirit. Ghosts do not understand what they are doing. They are driven by base emotional frequencies, often negative. They are reactive. So the more fear, anger, or hatred that you show them, the more powerful those frequencies become in them. And the best way to help them and protect yourself is to show compassion and acknowledge their existence. When they are around, set a good example for them by making healthy choices, practicing self-care, and enjoying calm, loving interactions with those around you. Being of service is also helpful. Even something so simple as pushing carts at your local grocery store parking lot can loosen those attached spirits. Ghosts are attracted to messes and clutter. They love laundry piles. Cleansing and decluttering will help them move on. Sometimes a ghost will latch onto a specific object, so locating and removing this object from your space can stop the spirit from interacting with you. However, be careful what you do with the object. Get rid of it in some way that will keep it out of the hands of another unsuspecting person. And if you ever see a strange rock or object in a location that seems out of place, it is probably best to leave it alone. You never know if a shaman has gotten rid of an object riddled with spirits. They do that. If they got rid of it and then you really don't want to bring it home with you. Mindful bathing and cleansing your space removes the shadows they often hide in. Burning sage or purifying essential oils and incense creates an energy field that they cannot enter. Several herbs are known for their protective qualities, such as sage, rosemary, and mint. Placing these plants near your windows or planting them in your garden can create a protective barrier. The same can be said for crystals. Black tourmaline, selenite, clear quartz, and amethyst all have frequencies that repel and absorb negative energy. These can be placed into the corners of your room, your house, so that you can create a protective grid. Occasionally, spirits can wreak havoc in a home, and try as you may, they won't leave. If you feel that you need help, contact a shaman, medium, or priest in your area. They often have a better understanding of these things and can help remove this negative energy to restore your peace. Be completely honest with them and share details of what you've been experiencing, even if it seems crazy. We all need help sometimes, and if they are truly what they claim, they will believe you. The most important takeaway that I can give you today is that your fear and anger only feed the negative energy. So try not to be afraid, but instead feel compassion. Panicking and screaming can be really, really fun when watching a scary movie, but it isn't conducive for spiritual healing and ascension. When approaching ghosts, please hold their presence sacred and let go of the fear. Fear is just ego opening a portal for negative energy to slip through and amplify. It won't matter how many crystals you place or how often you burn sage if you are still fearful and angry. Question your fear. Question your anger. Then take the signals they give you to look for what changes and adjustments need to be made to restore peace and cleanse your space. Through your ascension, we all rise. Thank you so much for watching. Please leave a like and subscribe. Please don't forget to leave a comment letting us all know about your experience with ghosts and spirits. I would love to read your stories. So have a spooky October. I love you all.